Hello and welcome to For Further Review. I have with me two guests. I have Dr. Kim Fowler, who is the principal at Bradley, and I also have Mr. Luke Hill, who is an instrumental person, but also teaching some general music too, I think, Luke, right? Luke, could you talk to us just a little bit about what you do at Bradley?
Sure. As an instrumental music teacher and working along my other music associate, Karen Blooding, we are in our classrooms offering a music curriculum that is involving vocal music training, general music on classroom instruments, as well as instrumental music. We have a set of, in my class, we have a set of guitars that the 5th and 6th graders are playing, and a keyboard lab, and offering Orff instruments like xylophones and shakers, and then also African drums. And in addition to in our own classrooms, the whole arts team has an opportunity at Bradley to infuse with the classroom teachers, and that is we team teach and work together to teach the course content, specifically that which we've identified as needed areas, and meeting those needs with arts instruction alongside the curriculum.
Okay. Dr. Fowler, could you talk a little bit about that? Because Bradley is an arts integrated school. What have you seen at this school that you haven't seen at other schools where you've worked before?
I think the passion for the arts and knowing that and having the amount of staff that we need to really incorporate that, and having a lot of flexibility in making the type of schedule that you need to make these types of collaborations happen. Our arts blocks, the children stay in the same special area for 3 days. And that gives them 3 days to do like a unit of study. So in Mr. Hill's class, for example, his guitar students get to stay with him for 3 days during their special area rotation. But when he is not assigned to a class, he's also got 3 days that he can infuse with a grade level. So, for example, if in one 3rd grade class he does a family of music instruments, and they measure with centimeters or millimeters the size of a trombone, and that's what they're studying in their 3rd grade class. For 3 days he can go to each of those 3rd grade classes and work with those teachers to show the math in a realistic way by using the music as a key. That's just like one example. Our drama teacher goes in, if they're talking about a certain area or a certain person or a certain time period, they may do readings that they work on in the drama class, but then can infuse back into the grade level curriculum. So the two teachers work together. Typically it's one of the arts people and 3 classroom teachers that all teach that same content. We have the standards, and we have the kind of the pacing that goes with those standards, and then to hopefully reach kids that maybe have difficulty doing it just from a book or just from certain areas. Maybe the music infusing is an inlet for them to understand that this is relevant to me, and I love music, and I love art, and I like drama. And a lot of our students, especially our second language learners, learn through the universe of arts, because the arts are universal. So it is a really special approach, I think, for Bradley, especially considering we have students from all over the world at Bradley.
How long have you been doing this, Dr. Fowler? Is this the first year of the infusion as it is now?
Well, we started talking about it somewhat last year. When I became the principal in February, we started talking about, I've always had a passion for an arts integrated school. I've even toyed with writing a charter application for doing an arts integrated school. So when I had the opportunity to come to Bradley in February, started sharing how this might look, and working with my team of teachers, which are fabulous. And the team, we dreamed together, we visited some schools, we looked at best practices, studied it, and this year we started our implementation to make it truly an arts integrated school in practice, not just in name.
Right. Luke, could you talk about, because it sounds very different than what I experienced when I was teaching music, could you talk about how that transition has happened and how it does look different from the past, please?
Sure.
From your perspective.
I think as a teacher in the music room, I have to take I get to take the view of the whole school more into account when I think of the students that I'm teaching and the students I'm serving in the music classroom. Where are their needs academically? Where are their needs musically? And really, as we're talking about in Murfreesboro City Schools, serving the whole child, teaching the whole child. And that's an opportunity as a music teacher to do that and work with the classroom teachers. I think the collaboration piece probably would be the number one difference maybe at Bradley than maybe at other schools.
One of the questions I think I would have, just from my background, if there are other music teachers or art teachers out there, they might be saying, well, what happens to the truth that is in music? What happens to that content-specific kinds of stuff that music would have? Doesn't this dilute it somehow? Doesn't this impair what music can bring to the child? Can you talk a little bit about that? Sure.
I myself have had those questions, and even in implementing have gone through those thoughts myself. Because I do feel that music in and of itself is worthy to be taught, and it really is part of the whole child's education that we can serve in Murfreesboro. However, the implementing of both with the classroom teacher, those other standards, in my classroom, I'm going to be teaching the music content and then collaborating with the classroom teacher to say, okay, what are they working on? What can I pull in? And I am, number one, teaching music, but I get the chance to plan and collaborate with the teacher to find those specific standards. So instead of just teaching drumming, I can teach drumming from the continent of Africa. And we can talk about our cardinal directions, and we can talk about, well, these drums, these djembes are from West Africa. That's very simple, little pull-in, but it's reinforcing it, right. And it can help. So you're really not seeing it diminish the value of music. It almost sounds like, in my mind, I almost think about it, and we really haven't talked about this, but it almost sounds like that just as I'm not a musician separate from being a whole person, what I'm hearing is that music is by itself, but it's also part of that whole child. It's also part of that academic area in a way too. Is that kind of what we're talking about here? I would completely agree. And that we can't just divide the student, okay, right now you're a musician. Right now you're a fourth grader learning social studies. Right. That really is. And if we can get that throughout the day. Throughout the day they are getting some of the arts. Throughout the day they are getting their content wherever they go. And yet the teacher, their responsible is for those standards, and my responsibility is for my standards. But working together to make it fluid for the child, I think is very effective. That's pretty cool. And the research says that it is. Yeah. Kim, can you talk about, because this is a different approach, so whenever we have different approaches with education, usually there's some professional development, there's some learning that we have to do as the adults who are actually doing the facilitating of the student learning. Could you kind of talk about what your teachers have done and what kind of new knowledge you've had to help them gain or that you've gained as far as this goes? What kinds of training have you had?
Most of our training, we've had some formal training, but we've also had a lot of informal training, working through our professional learning community. I think the first thing was just starting to think about the schedule of the day in a different way. How can we make this happen? How can we look at the whole day to try to best utilize our people, best utilize our time? So started talking about it last year shortly, about in February and March. In May, we went to South Carolina to observe some schools that were further along in the process than we are. One school was almost exactly like Bradley, with the same demographics and the same type of issues that we have. They also integrated their positive behavior support system, which we have as well, in with their music, and the whole piece was like, oh, this is something that we can see concrete that helps us kind of where we need to be in 3 or 4 years, and hopefully even sooner. Then we came back, worked with our staff as a whole, kind of did a presentation of our visitation, some of the key learnings that we had, and talked about what do we need to put into place next. Then, in the middle of July, our teachers went together to MTSU, to the Tennessee Arts Commission, Create 2011, and got a lot of great ideas, and some of our teachers presented as well, a lot of great ideas on how to better integrate and collaborate and work together. Then we came back as a team after that and decided, well, what's our steps in implementation? What can we do right now? What do we need to do later? So we worked with each grade level before school started. Every teacher in the building came in. They spent a day in planning together with the arts teachers. The art teachers were there for 2 days, and each of the grade levels came in, and we've kind of planned out the first 9 weeks based on our science and social studies standards at that time. And then what we hope to do is integrate in the mornings of the half-day professional development, use some of our instructional assistants to allow us to do planning for the arts during our half-days in the morning, because we don't do our rotations on those half-day mornings, so that we can continue to look at, okay, what are we going to do in the next 9 weeks? So a lot of it is just providing times for the teachers to collaborate, because they know their curriculum, they know their standards, and when they can get together and say, oh, that's the best professional development it is, because I can't orchestrate that. I'm not the classroom teacher. I'm not the musician. Probably they don't even want me to sing, and the kids at Bradley definitely say, Dr. Fowler, please don't dance. So they have that, and we use a planning template. The planning template has like the core standard that we're working on, the target skill. And on the left side is the classroom teachers, the academic piece, and on the right side of the rubric is the arts piece. And so both sets of standards are there together, and they integrate how that's going to look. So we have that type of documentation, and then what we're doing is recording on our iPods some of those, the results and some of the performances that the kids do and some of the products that they have.
Neat. Well, thank you very much. Luke, I understand that you recently received a grant. Would you talk just for a second about that, please?
Sure. This is a grant from the Bruning Foundation, which is a private foundation through a family, just a private family, and they give to not-for-profit organizations every year. And this is actually the fourth time I've been able to receive this grant for $5,000 each year. And it's been an awesome opportunity to provide instruments for the students at Bradley that wish to participate in the band. And thankfully, from this money, I've been able to never turned away a student that wants to play an instrument. And I think another great thing that this money has allowed me to do with the students is provide them with instruments that lend themselves towards scholarships post-high school, like the oboe, like the baritone, the tuba, some of these instruments that there aren't 150 kids trying out at MTSU or wherever, that they have even greater possibilities of having scholarships and kind of stopping the cycle of staying in certain places or where they are and getting that education further after high school. I think that's a really neat opportunity for these kids to be able to participate in. It's through the grant.
Well, I want to thank you, too, for being here. Luke, I have one more question for you. Could you talk just a little bit about your vision for Murfreesboro City Schools?
I think we can stay true to the whole child, especially in this time with whether it be technology or whether it be popular culture changing what our students are. They're a product of their environment. We just stay true to finding out who they are and their needs academically, personally, artistically, and do our best as a system to meet those needs. And that will be done collaboratively as we've been working on as a system. And I'm excited. I'm excited to be a part of the ride.
Well, it should be an interesting ride, that's for sure. I want to thank you, too, for being along for the ride and for your work here that you do with children. And I want to thank you for joining us, and thank you very much for your support of Murfreesboro City Schools. Have a great day.